So let's hop into our thought for the day. It comes from one of my favorite verses. It's interesting. Uh, this just shows how powerful this is, and if now a lot of you may be too young um, to remember or be familiar with the song by the Birds called Turn, Turn, Turn. And a lot of you are uh, very familiar with it. But, remember, to everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season, a time to be born. That song, right? I can't sing, but you know how it goes. Um, and very, very powerful song that the Birds did. And fascinating because people really connect with the song and the message of that song, that there's a season for everything and an activity for every activity under heaven. And it talks about a lot of different, a time to be born, a time to die, a time to embrace, a time to shun from embracing, a time to plant, a time to uproot what's been planted. And it's basically, when you read it, it's about the seasons that we go through in various areas of life. And amazing when you look at it through this lens, the whole thing kind of is about beginnings and endings, beginnings and endings. And thing that I was starting to say was so interesting. One of the things that I do on the kind of the thought for the day as we talk about stuff is I always talk about something from science and psychology and performance, but also how the scriptures talk about that same thing. And I always say, one of my favorite verses says A, B, or C. Well, that song that became so popular back in the hippie days and beyond was right out of the scriptures. It's out of Ecclesiastes chapter 3. Now, roll the clock forward. Most of my work is a lot of it, most of it, in the consulting world is with CEOs and companies and businesses and people that are running things and cultures and all of that. And it was interesting. However many years ago, a handful of years, 5, 6 years ago, maybe 7, I was dealing with a lot of really high performers who do incredible things. And you think of them as strong leaders, right? And I kept having the same conversation over and over and over again with all these high performers that could not pull the trigger on ending something. They just, there's a relationship they needed to end, or, to sometimes fire somebody for various reasons, non-performance, or they're creating problems, in the team or whatever, or to shut down a business unit that wasn't working, or to shut down aspects of the business that were pulling resources and focus away from where it should have been. In other words, or shutting down stuff whose day had gone by. It's like cleaning out your closet. There's crap in there you hadn't worn for however long. Well, it's time to end its ability to take up space in your closet, right? Well, that's what that passage in scripture is about. It's about beginnings and endings. And it was interesting when I was working with, and still, always working with these high performer types, that you wouldn't expect for them to have a problem, would you? Like, they're strong and they can, say, we got to stop this, shut this down, we're going to end this, and, take a stand. But you know what? So many of them, there was some soft spot inside, wounded spot, fear, a lot of dynamics that kept them from ending things. And we hear it on this program all the time. Talking to a woman just yesterday or the day before, kept going back to breaking up with a boyfriend. That relationship should have ended, but she would end it and then couldn't end it. We'll go back, try it again, try to fix it, go back, try. Ending things is a part of life. Now, some things are meant to be forever, like marriage, for example. There are some circumstances where even that ends. It has to end. But a lot of things are really not necessarily designed to live forever. There's a season to their thriving. Joy and I were going out to dinner one time a number of years ago, and I was kind of depressed. I was thinking about, I just didn't want to go. I felt kind of, I don't want to do this. And then I thought about it. The reason I didn't want to do it was we were going out with this particular couple, and I just really didn't. And I said to her, I said, "Why are we doing this?" She goes, "Because you wanted to." And I said, "Well, I don't want to. I thought you wanted to." She said, "No, I thought you wanted to. Do you want to?" "No, I don't want to either." "Well, why are we doing this?" And we started thinking about it. And it was a couple, nice couple, that we had known for a number of years. And every now and then, we get together and we started thinking about it. And there was a season back when, for various, you know, reasons and things that we were involved with, and a lot of stuff with kids and stuff, that it made sense. This kind of group would hang out sometimes and do stuff. But after that season, their lives went in a totally different direction. Their values changed, were way different. They were just, pursuing life in a way that wasn't the direction we were going in. And it might have made sense for a season, but it didn't make sense anymore. And I was thinking, you know, if we weren't going out with them tonight, you're talking about, there were, two or three other couples that were always saying, "We wish we had more time with you guys. We want to go deeper." Right. And we could be spending this night, this dinner, this time with them, but we're not. And so we started to think, you know what, we need to really focus on maybe some of the activities, and you start to look at all these categories that you're involved in, maybe this committee, or you belong to this group or whatever it is. And it might have been right for a season, but you really need that time and energy to go pursue whatever is next, and whatever God has put before you that has life now. And maybe it's time I quit that softball league, because I need that night to go pursue my next step in my career. I need to go take a course, or I need to do this or that. And that's the idea of Ecclesiastes 3, that there are sometimes, and when you think about this, I won't read the whole thing, but I'll give you some examples. There's a time to plant and a time to uproot what's been planted. I remember this in my own life. I, wanted to do a faith-based psychiatric hospital, and stepped out and started that venture with some other people, and we did a hospital, and it worked well. We did another one, and another one, and treatment centers. Ended up with the sizable company throughout the Western United States that had treatment centers and hospital units. And I thought that was going to be what I did really predominantly for the rest of my life. Now, I was young when I started it. I was in my late 20s. And I thought, this was a dream. And it took a long time to build it, and ran it for about 12 years or so. And then what happened was the healthcare industry started to change. And basically insurance, towards the end, insurance kind of went away for inpatient psych. When we started, we could spend 30 days with a patient and their family and really, really do a lot of good things. And then they kept going down to like 3 to 5 day stays. That's not why I went into it. I didn't go into it just to medicate somebody and send them back out on the streets without going through deep healing and change and growth and all of that. And even though it was, as viable as a business, it still worked fine. It wasn't why I went into it. And so the season for that calling ended. And that's when, we sold it and got out of it and started to take the message to other venues. But see, that just happens in life. And sometimes we hang on too long to things whose season has passed. Sometimes you hang on to trying to resolve a conflict with somebody who's in denial and they're not coming to the party. And the Bible is full of examples like Matthew 18. Go talk to them. If they listen, you won them over. But if they don't, then what does it say? Don't, keep trying, keep nagging, all that. Get 2 or 3 other people and go talk to them. If they don't hear that, do an intervention. If they don't hear that, ultimately you're gonna have to say, well, if you don't want to deal with a problem, then we can't hang around you. See, that's like the passage says, there's a time to embrace and a time to shun from embracing. So the psychology of this is, or a big part of the psychology of this is, that's not easy to do. Sometimes it's very difficult for people to end something, to admit failure, admit defeat. Ecclesiastes 3 says there's a time to search and a time to give up is lost. How many times you have, like in business or some product line or this and that, we're working and trying to make it work and working. And then finally, it's just not going to work. We got to shut it down because whatever reason. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to think about this, and what I called it in the books, Necessary Endings was the name of the book. Necessary endings. As Ecclesiastes 3 says, it's sometimes the season is over, sometimes things aren't working, sometimes you've tried everything you can do. It's not in your power to make it different. Somebody else won't do their part. That's when sometimes an ending is in order. But to do that, we got to face our fears. And let me give you a handful of them to look at. One is sometimes we're afraid we over-identify with the pain that it's going to cause somebody. And we just keep enabling it because we don't want to say no, because that's going to be a tough thing for them to deal with, even though that may be the best thing for them because it will wake them up and realize, I got to have a come to Jesus moment here. I got to face the light, realize this is costing me. But if you keep enabling it, that never happens. Sometimes it's fear of the loss. You end some things, you lose some things. And there's a grief period. Happens in singles life all the time. You're dating somebody, you realize this is just not ultimately what I'm looking for. You have to end it, but there's so much good there and so much attachment. It's hard to go through that loss. Sometimes it's a fear of the conflict. Sometimes it's a fear of, I might need that. How many hoarders, you want to throw something away and person, no, I might need that. Well, you hadn't used it in 20 years. I know, but I might need it. Well, if you ever do, then go find another one, but you haven't used it in a long time. And so I want you to think about, here's the sentence I want you to take away from this. What is in my life right now that doesn't fit my tomorrow? What is in my life right now that does not fit my tomorrow? There may be some involvements of time. There may be some involvements of money. There may be some involvements of relationship and energy and focus. But if we're deeply involved in stuff and that's not part of my vision for tomorrow, then we better have a plan of it is necessary to end it at some point. So what in my life exists now that doesn't fit my tomorrow? If you're single, for example, and you want to have a great relationship, with somebody that's able to love you and respect you and, communicate and have mutual affection and all of that, and you're in a relationship where you're getting gaslighted and treated in toxic fashions, well, that really doesn't fit your vision for tomorrow, does it? And so that's got to be addressed. Or if you want to be financially thriving, and there may be some practices going on today that doesn't fit the vision of a financially thriving person. For example, it might be time to really, really, really start to take care of some debt. That's a big one. Or stop some other patterns or involvements or things that you're spending money on. It could be in any area of life. But the concept is something the Bible calls pruning. And we prune in three instances. There are good things in our life that we're involved in, but they're not the best things for that use of time. So we have to let go sometimes of some good things. Oh, I'd love to, I would love to. I just had this happen. There was a group forming that I would have really liked to have been in. There was a men's group. And I would really, really have enjoyed it. But I looked at my bandwidth over the next year, and I looked at, wow, the time I really, 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 it would be so much more useful for me to use that time focused on a couple of things I know I've got to get done over the next year. So sometimes we have to let go of some good things and prune them from the menu. Sometimes they're not good things. Sometimes there's things that they're sick and they're not going to get well. You're dealing with an addict who's in denial, and you keep trying and they're just not coming to the party. And you say, that's all I can do. I can't be around you till you get sober, right? And sometimes there's just stuff that's taking up space, and we just have to, kind of end it. All right. So there is, go think about this. Time and energy investment. What are you invested in that it may be time to wind down as this year winds down? So, you know what? I don't think I'm going to do that next year. I'm not going to take that class next year. I'm not going to do this or that or be involved here, or I'm going to cancel that subscription. It's costing me too much to have 64 movie channels that I never watch or stuff. If you did that, you could subscribe to boundaries.me. How about that? All righty. There's our word for the day. Ecclesiastes 3. To everything there is a time and a season, to every activity under heaven.